All right, looks like slowed down on people entering, so as latecomers come in, we'll catch them up. So welcome everyone tonight. I know it's a busy week. We have a lot going on. There's an open house at Wagner. We have Chancellor Banks speaking at a Queensborough event. So we really appreciate you coming here tonight and joining us for our high school and middle school admissions and beyond forum. Tonight, I, along with Kaushik Das, are the co-chairs of CEC District 2 Diversity and Admissions Committee. We have invited co-hosts from CEC District 20, President Steve Stowe, maybe he can raise his hand, Second Vice President Jen Hu. We've also invited presenters from CCHS, Karen Wang, and I will toss it to Kush, aka Kaushik Das, so we can get right into the heart of the meeting.
Hello all. I don't normally open with a presentation, but I think unfortunately it's necessary for tonight. Can everyone see my screen? Does that look like the right screen, Ben or Raman? There we go.
Yes.
Looks good? Okay. As Robin said, we have co-hosts from CC20 and Karen Wang, who's the president of CCHS. We're going to start with just a quick overall admissions update for high school, middle school. Is that applications are currently open, and the deadline to submit applications in my schools is March 1st. I do want to highlight parents should use their My Schools account, not their My Students. This is probably one of the most commonly confused and asked questions. Just so you know what that looks like. If you do a Google search, My Schools will come up this way. And depending on what you click in, you'll either get this welcome screen or this login screen. That means you're in the right place. They'll put you into high school admissions or middle school admissions, whatever your needs may be at the time. And your My Students account, and it's very confusing, I know, looks like this. This is where you normally see your kids' grades, attendance, and other matters, and report cards. Not what you're looking for. You're looking for this screen or this one. So on that basic note, I'm going to toss it next to Karen Wang, who is, as we mentioned, the president of CCHS. She has a presentation that she mentioned, believe she already did once at CCHS. And I'll add on with some comments from District 2 here and there. Karen?
Thanks for inviting me to speak today. CCHS passed at our last meeting a resolution asking the DOE to revisit this new screen high school admissions process. And I think the issue regarding this process is it's essentially a lottery. I see a question in the chat. CCHS is the Citywide Council of High Schools. So you have your local CECs and you have the Citywide Council of High Schools. I'm the president of the Citywide Council of High Schools. So in this new admissions process, a point value is assigned to the highest grade for 4 different subjects: ELA, math, science, social studies. It's the highest grade of grade 7 or grade 8 first marking period or grade 8 second marking period. And then that grade is assigned a point value. So an 85 to 100 gets 400 points, a 75 to 84 gets 300 points. And then all those point values are averaged to determine which tier a student will qualify for in terms of the lottery. So students who apply to the same school are entered into a lottery with other students in the same tier. And the issue that we have.
Well, sorry.
It's okay. I can talk to this. It's fine. So the issue with the tiering system is that a student who has a 70 GPA can actually be assigned a tier 1, right? Depending if we're taking the best grade over 3 marking periods for 4 different subjects, you're picking the outliers, and it doesn't accurately reflect students who have worked hard and have done well. You have a 99 student who could be assigned to tier 1, as well as a 70 student who could be assigned to tier 1. We have confirmed with the DOE that there are students in that 75 and plus range who are assigned into tier 1. In terms of other changes to the to the admissions process. Attendance is no longer considered. It hasn't been since last year. Attendance is no longer considered. It hasn't been since last year. State test scores are not considered as well, given the lack of availability for test scores. This is also similar to last year. And what's really changed is that all the admissions decisions will be managed at a centralized DOE level as opposed to at an individual school level. So I think what's important for parents is to understand first what grades are going to be considered. And you want to make sure that information is correct. I understand it's on the My School account. So you should, sorry, my school's account. So you should make sure those grades are correct. And then, understand where your child is in terms of the lottery so that you can make decisions based on that.
I'll cut in here for a moment because a little more graphics. Yeah, it's a little bit worse than that even. So this is a spreadsheet that was presented at several of the, it wasn't just CCHS that presented this resolution. District 2 presented a similar one the night before, and District 20 as well as similar as the same night as CCHS. And we all shared a similar spreadsheet as well. In the top line, you have 4 different students, all of whom have various GPA averages, a 98, an 88, an 80, and an 80. These all end up being tier 1 students. And you can see students 1 and 3 were the examples that I believe Karen gave. I'll add to that student 2 who has decent grades but does have a near failing grade in the ELA. He would still be in tier 1. And the last student has a failing grade with several 85s. We did have a meeting with enrollment, and we were told that there weren't any students that fell into this category, but there were quite a few that fell into this one. We'll get to exactly what a few means. Furthermore, there was here's other students you might want to compare them against. Several students that got grades between 84 and 100. As you can see, several of them have GPAs higher than students 2 and 3 in the first line, and all these students would not qualify for the first tier. Karen referenced lottery numbers as well. Each student is assigned a single lottery number, not one for each school, it's just one for your entire application. And for high school, your chances of being accepted, depends first on your tier, which we just discussed, tier 1 or tier 2. But since we expect the first tier could hold between 47 to 51,000 students. And this is why Karen mentions that this really means your child chances are determined almost entirely by lottery number, not GPA. For reference, for DOE enrollment, there are roughly 63,000 graduating 8th graders this year. So we expect 47 to 51,000 of those 63,000 to qualify for tier 1. And bottom line, simple math, more than 3/4 of students may qualify. Because of this, we recommend the parents should request their lottery number. Why? Knowing your lottery number can provide a more realistic approach on what your 12 choices should be, a more realistic approach on your options outside the DOE. You can get your lottery number by foiling schools at foil@schools.nyc.gov. We also recommend you include either high school enrollment at schools.nyc.gov or middle school enrollment at schools.nyc.gov. Obviously, right now we're talking about high schools, but foiling is the same method for high school or middle school, and those are just the two similar but slightly different emails. Again, regardless of whether or not you go to high school or middle school, the first 2 characters of your number will specify the percentages of students who rank equal or better than you. A lottery number starting with a 0 to 3 is in the first quartile, and one starting with C to F is in the last. And that's because it's really a hexadecimal number. We can go into the specifics of it, but basically, these are all the different hexadecimal numbers one could have if you're just looking at the first 2. This is it broken out by by deciles. So if you got the first 2 numbers are 19, you're in the top 10%. If they're 7F, you're in the top 50%. And anything worse, and it gets considerably worse than there. If you want to look at it by quartiles instead, you're looking for 3F to FF. And based on our estimates, I think you want to be in the top third. So you probably want a number starting with a 3 or a 4 or less. If you really get wonky, there's some other links. I'll post them in the chat, and it goes into more what how these ladder numbers are really done. The first one is by the DOE. I actually find the second more helpful, and the last most succinct. And I'll toss it back to Karen, and I'll post those in the chat in the meantime.
I just wanted to clarify something that Kush said. We were told by the Office of Student Enrollment that there are very few students that fall in the 65 to 75 GPA level that qualify in tier 1. So there are students who have 65 to 75 GPAs that fall into that tier, and then 75 and above, we don't know what that number is, but ostensibly it's a very high number. And so this is not a CCHS survey, I want to clarify. And I want to clarify, so I was asked here to present the resolution that we passed. And I want to clarify that I'm here also in my own capacity as a parent advocate. So any opinions I express will be that of my own and not the opinion of CCHS. So I did send out a screen survey with some other parent advocates, just to see where people, if people understood the high school application process and what their views are of the current administration. And so if you can go to the next slide.
Okay, trying to do a few things at once. There you go.
So most parents, I would say an overwhelming majority of parents, do not feel that the high school application process is easy to understand or navigate. I think we have close to 80% who don't feel like this is an easy process to navigate.
Next slide.
Next slide. Despite that, 71% of parents said they understood the new screen placement process. I don't know if all parents understand the ramifications of the process, but 71% said they understand how the process works. Parents certainly want to see the grades that are being used to calculate the tiering, which the DOE did put in the My Schools account. And 70+% also said they wanted to see their lottery numbers. Next slide, please. I mean, this one kind of speaks for itself. Only 11% of high school of parents believe that the high school process for screen programs is fair and equitable. Next slide. And 72% of parents believe that DOE policies will not provide the best opportunity for their children to reach their fullest potential. And that strongly disagree. So if you add together people who agree and strongly disagree, it is closer to 80% as well. And so parents are losing faith in the system. Next slide.
Sorry, screen frozen for a moment.
So parents are looking at other alternatives. The issue with the current screen schools admissions process is that it came out so late that if you were a parent that did not apply to, didn't take the tests that are required to apply to private or parochial schools, you're kind of stuck here. And so it's unfortunate. So 44% of parents said they have considered private or independent schools. 27 have considered parochial schools. 22% have considered charter schools. And I think what's really striking is 55% of parents have considered leaving New York City altogether. And I think, that should be a number for, the administration at the DOE to really wake up and, take a look at these policies and the way they do parent engagement, because one of the biggest issues that, we have is that we've been asking about the high school admissions process since August. And there was very little engagement between then and now. And the next couple of slides are just some comments that, that people put in their responses to the survey. Quite a few of them are issues about people taking issue with the way the information is being disseminated, how difficult the process is to navigate, the lack of engagement from DOE in terms of hearing about this information from the proper channels. And then, obviously there are many who don't believe that this system is fair and equitable because it doesn't reward the students that do well. So that's it.
Do you want to flip through the different comments? You want to read any of them?
I don't have my glasses on, Kush, and I'm on my laptop, so I'm going to leave that to you.
Karen, can you tell us how many people participated in the survey?
So this survey had a little over 400 results. And when we had 200 results versus when we had 400 results, the percentages, stayed relatively the same. And so it hasn't really changed over time. I think we're up to 450 something results at this point.
I'll read just the first one. Screened high schools are not at all alike. Absent from this plan is the chance to provide evidence of topic-specific talent or potential. The DOE should spend more efforts at providing a more equitable education at the lower school levels within the zone schools. Kids should not just get lucky with a good lottery number for their top choice. When this year's screening criteria is much worse and unfair than even last year. We also collected some quotes as well from D2 and District 3. One person says that looks like 1/3 of 8th grade students left the DOE last year, but we are a little school. That's slightly inaccurate. I think there's a 1/3 drop off from 8th grade last year and 8th grade this year, but those numbers do roughly correlate. And my favorite, DOE sucks. It's getting harder and harder to live in the city.
I'd also like to add, someone mentioned that parents who have inquired about the lottery have been told that A, lottery numbers no longer released, and B, their inquiry was forwarded to the DOE General Counsel. I don't know anything about that. Karen, are you aware of this?
I am not aware of this.
Okay, and additionally, what about middle schools? Can you speak to middle schools at all? I know it's a similar process with the lottery number.
We'll get to that in a second. We'll just finish this off, and it's the next topic. I also wanted to close with some other closing thoughts on high school admissions. In 2021, 7% of high school applicants received none of their first 12 choices. In District 22, it was 11%. In District 15, it was 9%. That number was considerably higher in Manhattan, where district priority was removed, and there are no high schools with borough priority. In District 2, that number was 18%, which itself was up from 10% from the year before. And in District 3, that number was 12%. This correlates to another resolution that we had passed, Resolution 191, which had requested the reinstatement of at least borough priority, but ideally district priority. There were schools in District 2 and I believe other districts in Manhattan that had district priority, and last year during the de Blasio administration, they went straight from district priority to citywide. That does not compare to other boroughs. Other boroughs have schools that do. Some have zone schools, and some have a district priority school. Borough priority schools. My understanding, Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, is that New York City, Manhattan has none.
Right.
So we were gonna, Robin, to answer your question, we're actually gonna pause here and take some questions, either comments or questions on the high school process, or anything you've seen here, anything you'd like to highlight and focus in a bit more on. We have a speaker sign-up sheet, but I think I'm just gonna try it with just the raise of hands, if anyone wants to chime in at this point.
And we do have a couple people that did sign up already.
They did sign up already? Okay. Let's start with them,
yeah.
And then I think we'll try the raising hand feature if anyone else is interested.
Okay, so the first person is going to be Kate Sullivan, and I'm going to ask you to unmute. Okay.
Hi. Good evening. As the host just said, my name is Kate Sullivan, and this is my 8th year as a special education teacher in an elementary K through 5 community school in an ICT classroom in District 20. Last week, I attended my first CEC District 20 meeting and spent that time listening to all those who shared and presented their ideas and feelings around different topics and issues that were brought up, specifically around the audition policy that was just reinstated at MS 936. What brought me here today was in the subject line of this meeting's focus around family engagement and in parentheses, lack thereof. Before making judgments, I'm trying to be curious about the CEC and DOE's actions and decision-making process. Below are some of my curiosities. Why was an admissions policy abruptly changed and lack of communication given out during one of the most challenging Decembers and winter breaks and during the first 2 weeks back from January, with the surge of COVID impacting most of New York City's students, families, and schools? Is this how quick and resolutions are typically made? It seems based on the CEC members' reactions tonight and on a commentary based on the high school admissions resolution, but this is not typically how fast these decisions are rolled out. And as many of you had mentioned, that it's nice to have a voice and to have these discussions with the DOE. Which then makes me curious about the CEC and DOE and how enough time to communicate decisions made to schools and communities around these decisions, and particularly around the audition criteria. Also, how are the CEC and DOE ensuring that all audition-based schools' applications and requirements are in different languages other than English? How are the CEC and DOE ensuring that all families are engaged and updated on upcoming change of admissions policies, not just to specific neighborhoods or on specific groups on social media? As hard as I am trying to stay curious with these curiosities, as I just mentioned, it seems that the current
conclude your statements, please,
and decisions that are in place are not being made in mind nor inclusive of all students and children and families. I hope going forward that both the District 20 and 2 CECs and DOE can do what I try to do myself and always as a person and a teacher and do better.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. If I could chime in for 1 second. I should have mentioned, we're gonna, for now, we're just gonna limit comments to 1 minute. I intend, if people wanna, and maybe consider making short comments and maybe a question as well. We have our guest speaker, Karen, with us. And then we may allow her to leave if she wants, or she can stay. And I will allow a more free-form opportunity to just talk or ask questions again at the end, time willing, of course. But if we could, I'm also going to answer a couple of questions that I see in the chat, and then we'll go to the second speaker, Craig. Someone asked, what about for middle schools? We're going to address that in a moment. That's our next topic. Can I share the spreadsheet with percentiles? I will add everything that I can here tonight. Look again on the CECD2 website, and there should be a section called Public Documents. We will add it there. Apologies it couldn't be done earlier. Everything was done in a condensed time frame, and we're doing the best we can. And it's not a time frame of our choosing, obviously. It's the one of, by DOE.
Karen, there's also a question, sorry to interject, Kush. There was a question from a parent on YouTube who is curious as to whether or not this survey can continue, whether you can keep going and try to get more input from other parents, additional parents beyond the 400.
The survey is still open, so any parent who wants to fill out that survey is free to do so.
And how long will you keep that open? Do you have any plans to close it or keep it open indefinitely?
I mean, applications close on March 1st, right? And so if we're not going to get significant feedback over the next week or so, there's limited use to that going forward.
I would also add that it is my intent to actually do a middle school survey as well. I will try to also add that in the public document section. And again, yes, and I agree with Karen that I don't know how much more value it has after a certain point. Craig, you want to go to the next speakers? I am monitoring the questions in chat as well.
Wait a second.
Yeah, Janie, do you want to go? Do you want to?
Yeah, so I have the blue. I have the blue sky timer up. It's set for 1 minute. When you have 5 seconds left, you will hear a gentle ring. When you have 2 seconds left, you will hear a louder, more irritating bell, and then it will go negative time. Just so you are aware of the time scale. I just wanted to mention that before I turn it on.
Okay, thank you. So next we're going to go to Tiffany Ma. Tiffany, you're ready.
Yeah, hi, how are you? I'm Tiffany, and I do find myself in a position to speak to a lot of the parents who are considering whether or not to enter the DOE system. I am the admin of Upper East Side Mamas, as well as being on this committee. So these are, we've actually had a video. We had, top consultants and with our CEC president, Ben Worden here, give talks on, the application process across entering DOE and entering the private school path. And that is really the big decision that all the people who are with kids, born 2018 and after are in right now. So the question that I have is, at this point, we are advocating for more engaged parents to come into the public system to be part of our advocacy. What can I do to give them any reason to do that? Because we're talking about, for the parents with gifted kids and where they're, sending kids to exhibition, kind of schools, like they're sending them to feeder preschools. They compete on the age 2 level, and then okay, that's a minute. Okay. So anyway, so the question is, because they need to get those seats in order to, have priority during high school, and then we have the lottery system at kindergarten. Like, what are we doing to make D2 education anything comparable to the kids who graduate from these private schools at 8th grade into college? Because they're competing with people who are graduating in these private schools in the college admissions process. And the most concerning.
Please wrap it up.
Yep. The most concerning thing that I heard so far, from PhD experts so far is also that if these kids, even if the parents are willing to supplement outside of the school, if they are, in negative educational environments for 6 to 8 hours a day, it's almost like it's better if they're not, there at all. So what would you advise that I advise all these people making the choice, like why they should enter the public sector?
Thank you for your comments. Okay, next is Jessica Lieberman. You should be unmuted now.
Oh, hi. I'm a parent in District 15, and I grew up in New York City and went to New York City public high schools at a time when there were very few New York City public high schools that were considered to be good or decent for kids to go to. And I'm concerned as a parent of a rising 9th grader currently in 8th grade, and then one also going to middle school this year, that we are entering back into a time when schools are sort of going back to where they were. Over the last 20 years, the DOE spent a lot of time creating lots of good public school options. And I'm concerned that that is disappearing for our children. And that is really a problem for me. And I want to know constructively what we can do to make our voices heard, that the changes they're making are not making the system better. They're actually destroying a system that is far better than it was a generation ago.
Thank you, Jessica. Daniela, do you want to speak? I know you had wanted to say a few words.
Yes, thank you so much. I really want to thank you all for putting this together so quickly. And I just want to make one comment that we have seen the impact of this type of admission policies this year, because we had lottery last year, and we have had so many complaints of parents, I would say across the spectrum, of children not being served. So either they are too advanced for the classes, or sometimes they need to catch up. And when you have, for example, in math in particular, when you have kids like with so much difference, so much gap of where they are, it's impossible for the teacher to differentiate and really serve every single child. And so we had one specific meeting at CEC District 2 where we talked about so many parents who came and said, my child is not being served, my child is given a textbook to study by themselves, or the teacher just saying, I need to teach the class. I cannot just cater to your child. And so I think it's important for us to understand the impact of these policies. And even if DOE says, oh, they're going to differentiate, they really cannot differentiate when there is so much variety about where kids are. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela. I'm going to I just want to answer the previous speaker's question. What can you do? Well, first, please, everyone who is here, please speak tonight. We are recording this. We'll be forwarding this to Department of Enrollment. We'll be forwarding on to the first Deputy Chancellor and the Chancellor if he sees it. Enrollment, though, is certainly aware of this issue. Several CEC members have met with them, and Sarah Kleinhender, the head of enrollment specifically. They want us to meet with them again, and we will make sure that they see it. Beyond that, we've been told by various politicians that really to make noise, the more noise you can make, if this upsets you, the more the more you'll be heard. And politicians want to see that before I guess they jump in, and there is a critical mass that's required for them to do that. I don't love the way that works, but that's what we were told. And I know that there aside from the people here, part of our engagement, our enrollment here today is limited because there are also friends of ours making noise at the Queensborough event where the Chancellor is tonight. So that's constructive what you can do. Please fill out the survey. Someone asked where the link to that was. It should have been in the invitation that went out for this event. It should be towards the bottom, but I will.
It's also in the chat. Ursula put it into the chat. So if you scroll down, you'll be able to find it.
Thank you. And that is Ursula, by the way, from CECD2, one of our compatriots in this fight as well.
I want to amplify what Kush is saying. There are a lot of you who are asking really brilliant questions, no pun intended, the brilliant NYC. Some really great questions in the chat and in person. I want you to know that we're hearing your questions. I wish we could address each one of them and talk infinite amount of time about what could be done. I think many of us are feeling the same frustrations or similar frustrations, but I'm reassuring you that we will be sharing this with all the parties involved. There's a comment, I was just on the Queen's virtual parent engagement. Chancellor Banks said they want to engage parents, but no time this year. So I would challenge as many parents as possible to raise their voices. It's ridiculous they don't have time. It's effectively a lottery, and they aren't being honest with parents. I'm also seeing statements about how had they known this 2 years ago or even 1 year ago, they may have made different family choices about private or charter or leaving the city. That seems to be a common theme here. I also want to mention a comment where Lisa Browner said, has Chancellor Banks written off students in 8th grade headed to high school? The survey has value because the Chancellor should hear from parents. Why is he not engaged with 8th grade parents? And why is there no transparency on how the lottery numbers are assigned and how essays in screen schools are factored in? Why, to my knowledge, we don't have essays currently for any of these schools. Why isn't Group 1 limited to those with a grade average of 90 or above? Great question. DOE is looking for equity. How is this system fair to anyone? I would argue it's not. How is this system fair to anyone? Is any of this in the best interest of students in meeting them where they are? That's a question we can all just reflect upon. And we're open to hearing everyone's perspectives on this, but there does seem to be a lot of commonality here with frustration. Let's continue with taking some more questions.
I'm also going to drop the email. In addition to not being silent, I'm going to drop some emails into the chat as well that were mentioned throughout the presentation.
Okay, thanks. Our next speaker is Trisha Joyce. Trisha, you should be able to speak right now.
Yes, hi, everybody. My name is Trisha Joyce. I am the chair of the Youth and Education Committee of Community Board 1 downtown. I'm speaking for myself this evening. I just wanted to tell you what my perspective is and have been doing this since 2007. In that time, I have come to understand that what the DOE is trying to do here is diversify our schools without first understanding that replicating successful models, understanding that they did indeed come from a tragic period of time in New York where there was immense urban flight. And if they don't take a methodical approach to fortifying our schools, admitting that, PTAs are paying for far too much due to the lack of funding, these are equity issues that until we solve them, slicing up this pie in a million pieces isn't going to provide the equity that they're looking for. So I just want to quickly say, because I hear a lot of parents saying, what can we do? And the bell rings. There are many things you can do. The resolutions we pass at the community board level are incredibly impactful. We've gotten a lot done downtown. We've gotten 5 schools built that they did not want to build. And we have moved a lot of needles by passing resolutions in conjunction with other community boards, which creates a lot of power. The CEC creates resolutions that get in front of the powers that be, and then mobilizing the elected officials in your district across the city. This isn't going to work for anyone, as far as I can see. I have the experience to be able to see this across the city, and it is a failed approach. And I think that it's really going to be important for the city of New York to take a cold, hard look at this, because there will indeed be urban flight. We've got 20% gone from Lower Manhattan because we had 20% of our kids not match anything. So
Tricia, we value your words, and I think you'll get more opportunity to speak, but I'd like to move on.
I'm looking for Karen Young. I don't see you in here anymore.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm under my husband's name, Ron
Okay.
Weisenberg.
Okay.
I just wanted to, since we're hoping that this will be seen and heard by the powers that be, I just wanted to echo the sentiments of everyone speaking here. As someone who, has grown up and lived in this area and hopes desperately to stay in the city, I'm just and echoing the sentiment of other parents who've spoken. It's really frightening to see how a system that's gotten stronger and stronger with more and more options is being dismantled, so that you wind up, being in a position as a parent of having to either send your kid to private school, which you might not be able to afford, or leaving the city. And, it can't be, good for equity or anything else. So I just wanted to add my voice to everyone else's.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to chime in on 2 comments. Yeah, sorry the timer is so annoying, but we had some issues with people running over time in our council, so we've opted to go that route. There was a question I'd like to answer that was potentially sent privately to a member. A question from a parent about whether or not we can share this in similar meetings in other languages for immigrants who are concerned about this matter. This was actually on our list to do. In fact, Steve Stowe, who is visiting us from D20, specifically wanted to do this. We just couldn't get it done in the time allotted. Our resolutions were passed in the middle of last week, and we did reach out. I believe he did reach out to DOE to do exactly this, but wanted some details that we just couldn't provide. And our apologies to those people. We would like to do that, but if the DOE ever gave us a chance to breathe and actually react, actually be proactive instead of reactive to their announcements.
I would invite anyone, though, if anyone is in touch with anyone who wants to come on here and speak in any language, I would invite them to come on and speak, and we can send their recording and we can have someone transcribe what they say, and we will add that to the notes. So if anyone's contemplating joining but doesn't speak English, please encourage them to come on and speak.
There's another question in the chat. Kush, I don't know if you want to address that, and we have no other speakers at this point.
Which one? The one sent only to you?
Yeah, and he sent it to everybody as well after that. I think it was a mistake.
I might toss this to Karen. I don't know the answer to this one, but anyone know how the 9th graders who were subject to the more open admissions policies last year are doing this year? Karen, do you have any thoughts on that?
We'll never know. There are no tests. We'll never know. We can foil it.
I would argue we have had this issue come up for middle schoolers, which will, like I said, is our next topic. And to the extent that that's analogous, and I believe it is, we will speak to that for at least current 6th graders in our district that we're aware of, and perhaps for other guests.
Push. I wanted to ask Karen, would you mind explaining in like 30 seconds what foiling means to anyone who may have joined late or may not know what it means?
It's a Freedom of Information request. And so, if you want specific information from the DOE, you can file a Freedom of Information letter and they will get back to you there's a time limit in which they're supposed to get back to you with the information. I will say, I guess just an answer to that question, I can only speak to my son's high school, which is Stuyvesant. I think kids are having a hard time adjusting, right? I don't know specifically ninth grade, but in general, kids are having a hard time adjusting. I think there's more, kids on their phone all the time. I know overall grades have come down, and mental health has been more of an issue there since the pandemic.
I'll read just a couple other comments. There's actually from a CCHS member. Effie, I don't know, do you want to? Ben or Craig, can you look to see if Effie Zachary is here and make him co-host if he is? He says, nothing will happen if you remain quiet. If you want change, this week, email and call your local politicians and complain about the lottery system. City council members, assembly members, state senators, congressional reps, mayor's office, even 311. And there's a counter argument to this. I think this was mentioned in the Queensborough meeting, that as a result of these changes, they increased access to this group by 13%. By this group, I believe, as it was referenced in the other meeting, this means Black and Hispanic students. That is probably the numbers that they're showing by as a sell to my guess, to the Deputy Chancellor and the Chancellor. Just keep in mind, though, I think that comes at the expense of basically providing a lottery to 3/4 of the students. And since we often hear how the city, that 3/4 of the students are below grade level, that would therefore imply a very large cross-section of students who are not going to be prepared to enter many of these screen schools. I do see a hand raised. Jay Hersham.
Hi, I appreciate everything that people are saying, and also the recommendations to reach out to various people in government and such. I just wanted to ask, in a world where there isn't time to reach out to absolutely everybody, what is the so-called, I guess you'd say, low-hanging fruit? Like, who are the most impactful people to reach out to? Is it state senators? Is it the mayors? Is it is it banks? Who, if we had one email to write, who would be the most effective person to write to, or call, or occupy their office, or whatever?
If you don't know what to do, I would go with the emails that I posted. Basically, enrollment, first deputy chancellor, and chancellor. If you do know your community council, your city council member, or your state assembly member, or whatever, and you know that they believe in this cause, but feel that they need the ammo to speak, then I would do that. That's probably better, but not all people know that last piece, and that requires a bit of research, and it's obviously particular to one's individual circumstances.
I'd also encourage parents, even though I don't like Twitter, it's a good place to amplify. You can tweet at our chancellor, you can tweet at our mayor, you can tweet at your local council member, you can tweet at the DOE and enrollment. So in addition to writing these emails, not instead, it's one more platform that you can try to get someone's ear.
We have more questions coming through. I would like to move on to the middle school.
There are no. I think we can move on.
Well, I'll address one or two questions here, and then we'll move on to middle school. What happens if your child doesn't get into any of their choice high schools? I don't know, Karen, if you want to field this one. I'll let you go speak first. I've got one more question.
Your child will get a placement. It may not be one of their top 12 choices. And we had a lot of students that were in this situation last year. I believe 6% of students did not get their top 12 choices, which is a pretty big number.
80% in District 2 didn't get their top choice, any of their top 12 choices.
I think it was also a particular problem in District 15.
Right. So
perhaps not as bad.
The numbers that I would read off again, I think the initial number was 6%, as Karen mentioned, but it was revised upwards to closer to 7%. That's across New York City. In District 22, it was 11%. District 15, it was 9%. District 2, it was 18%, as Robin mentioned, and District 3 was 12%. These are just some ones off the top of my head that I know that come up. there are several other examples across the 5 boroughs.
But these students could be placed in a school in a different borough, perhaps a trade school. They will be placed in a school, but it could be something that that has nothing to do with their interests or anywhere in proximity of their home. So it's definitely a hardship, especially during COVID, when families were trying to cut back on the amount of time that they were spending on public transportation. And hence we've seen a flight, as we talked about, out of the city and into private and into charters. But we have no idea right now how this will impact next year. But I imagine it won't be good.
So there's a really good question in the chat. Someone said, what are we advocating for this year? As part of our resolution, we asked them to either narrow the bands by which the grades are calculated so that students who have been performing, that it's a true academic screen as opposed to a lottery. Or, another way to do it would be just taking the grades that are already in there and using that as a straight average, right? And so you get placed in that tier based on a straight average. So those are the potential solutions that they could do that's not, repopulating that database with all new data. And it should be doable in the time frame that we're looking at.
Yeah, I'd actually speak more. I'll pull up the resolution, one of the resolutions themselves, to speak more to that point. Is that working? This happens to be the District 2 one, which I happen to pull up, but CCHS and District 2020 have similar resolutions. One of the methods that Karen just referred to was a ranking of applicants based on the actual numerical grades. Is basically we're just asking for a top-down ranking instead of an average. So if they haven't done instead of the bucketing and tiers that they're requesting, if they haven't done that programming already, that would indeed be easier. Alternatively, if they have already done the mapping, another easy request would be to just change the bucketing, which is for those who happen to be math people or programmers, that actually is quite an easy change. Their response so far has then been that both would take too long. As a programmer, I staunchly disagree, as do several other fellow CEC members across various CECs who are similarly inclined. I would also add, specific to District 2, our other resolution, 190, also requests the return of again, either district or geographic, or at the very least, borough priority for Manhattanites. District priority is what we had a year ago, and some people say it's unfair for District 2 and 3, etc. But that was done because we have one of the largest numbers of high school students, and many of the schools that were created in Manhattan were created specifically because there was a shortage of seats, roughly 500 for all those kids graduating. But even if you don't like that argument, Manhattan is certainly at odds with how other boroughs are treated, which do have geographic priority of some sort. But I don't know, Steve, would you like to add a District 20 perspective as well? I want to monopolize.
No worries. And would you like me to start with middle school or just sort of speak generally to the topics that have come up?
You can speak generally to topics that have come up and then maybe kick us off on middle school.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, by the way, for having me and having other CEC 20 members here tonight and D20 parents. The same issue in CEC 20. I think we lost 7% of our students year over year. So we're a district in Southwest Brooklyn. We have 35,000 K through 8 students. We used to be extremely overcrowded. Now we're down to under 110% capacity, not for the right reasons though. On the academics that we've touched on tonight, we are, especially with middle school, we've requested from our superintendent 6th grade academic data by school so that our formerly academically screened schools, we will be able to review the performance of the 6th grade cohort that entered those schools and draw conclusions about the appropriateness of the DOE policy. to remove academic screens. I will go into the middle school. We're not, so the slides, Kush, can you share that screen? Yep. I'm just going to run through some of the points on middle schools, and the idea is not to repeat how to apply necessarily. I'm sure everyone is well aware of how to do that, but just to point out some observations that might help parents make a little more sense of things. The acronym I came up with, PPN, these are sort of the three main determinants of your middle school. And the preferences is determined by the family. That's the ranking up to 12 programs everyone knows about. The priority groups, that's determined by the school. This can be things like the local zone, the borough preference, continuing student, sibling preference, free and reduced lunch, etc. And then the number, same as Karen was discussing for high schools, and Kush illustrated. It's in the case where we have a priority group and there's more applicants than seats, a random lottery will be utilized. Very importantly, the lottery is only by priority group. So if the first priority group at a school is all accepted, all those kids get in, and then you drop to the next priority group. And if there's more applicants than available seats, then the lottery happens at the priority group level. So one other note on priority group, the sibling preference that we've talked about, this was, as has been well noted, has been extended to, or has been put in place this year for current 6th grade students at formerly academically screened middle schools. I speak as myself tonight, but the CEC20 did pass a resolution, just like CEC2, sort of condemning the impact of this policy. This policy is sibling preference when you're putting it in place without a full, without really addressing the suspension of academic screening last year. You're putting it in place and you're entrenching that policy sort of through a backdoor method, if you will. The number of students that are admitted through lottery will thereby increase and continue and sort of create facts on the ground, if you will. So that's just the opposition to the sibling preference being put in place this year without a comprehensive, without really addressing the issue of are schools going to be allowed to set academic criteria for middle school? So that's a topic for what we've heard in the meetings with the DOE is that they say that the suspension of academic screens is in theory temporary. I think there's some skepticism, but that's something that the current administration will have to address. Just onto the next one, just a few.
Wait, Steve, can we dwell for just one more? I pulled up your resolution actually.
Go for it. Yep, go for it.
We can dwell on the sibling priority issue that Steve had mentioned. This was referenced in, this is from enrollment, as a quote that was referenced in both resolutions, and it kind of speaks for itself. When many parents asked why they would do a sibling preference for sixth graders, but not 7th, this is enrollment's response, quoted. As you may be aware, a sibling priority was first piloted in District 15 following a community-driven district-wide diversity initiative the year before. To help preserve the goals of the diversity plan, sibling priority was phased in so that applicants with siblings in 6th grade made it through the random selection process received priority to their sibling schools. Similarly, we're now phasing in sibling priority across all DOE middle schools a year after the initial pause in academic screening. This allows for sibling priority to be implemented in an equitable manner. Many current students who are 7th grade or older were admitted to their middle school based on academic record, though, through the previous screening process. Implementing a priority for these students would give applicants access to a school based on their older siblings' academic performance. Both resolutions took many issues with this. They took issues with the fact that, one, that they actually achieved diversity. Many of us do not feel that happened, and if it did happen in District 15, it came at the expense of increased travel time and flight out of that district. Secondly, there's no proof whatsoever that the lottery increased diversity in other districts because it may have actually decreased diversity in some schools as as students stayed closer to home, reinforcing neighborhood segregation that is prevalent in New York City. And then lastly, it's still implying that greater good from lottery than screening, when the pause was many times told that it was going to be temporary and COVID related, not in relation to diversity. And it basically goes on to challenge many of those assumptions, and again proposing that the DOE either say that it's not okay for middle, or it's more challenging under current times for middle schools to travel to middle school, and it's useful for them to have an older sibling with them, and give sibling priority to everyone, or it is okay for middle schools to travel on their own, and then sibling priority should be given to no one. And that is kind of where we ended up in. And sorry to cut you off, Steve. But
no worries. Thanks. Great points. Just a few notes on the second of the P's, preference considerations for families. I'm sure many are aware of this, but perhaps for those who are not, things to think about when you're ranking your schools. Number one, and all of this can be viewed on My Schools, the number of priority groups set by the school. Again, the things that I was just referencing. Is there a district preference, a continuing student preference, free and reduced lunch preference? Just know how many priority groups there are, know where you fall, because that will affect your odds of acceptance at that school. Admissions data. I think it's really useful to look at the program's data from last year. You can see number of applicants, you can see the number of seats, and you can see the number of seats filled last year. That should give a good idea of how much demand there is for the program. And then this is sort of this category that is really sort of a personal choice, but how you define your top choice schools, your so-called reach schools versus safety schools, and really do a mix on your 12 schools that you rank, mixing sort of some that are very competitive, that have a lot of applicants, and then others that maybe don't have as many applicants as relative to the number of seats. One thing that's worth pointing out is for zoned, if you are in a zoned school, or if you have a sibling preference, you do not have to necessarily rank those schools high in order to get awarded that priority grouping. You will still get put into that priority group, even if you rank the school 10th or 12th. And so that's one way of strategically doing it is, that if you're in a zone for a school, you can rank that school. Perhaps you could rank that school a little lower and still have a good shot because you're in one of the highest priority groups. Schools don't see your ranks. And in theory, the DOE says they're trying to get everyone the highest rank possible. Flip to the next one, please.
Can I make one more comment on the reach and safety?
Please.
Think about in the past when schools were screened, people thought about reach and safety in terms of their grades and how desirable those schools were. Keep in mind that is changing over time as schools go lottery. So please, that said, those many schools that were once desirable to continue to be desirable, please look at that in conjunction with your lottery number. That's why we go into, I know the lottery number is not the most interesting topic in the world, but it's a level of obfuscation that's not obvious to people. Please consider it with what we discussed, because that is important. And the DOE might say that it's not important to the lottery number, which is what they maintained last year, but we strongly disagree there. And that goes exactly to our next point. Just go ahead, Steve.
Sure.
Your take on lottery on random numbers.
Here's another take, and it's largely the same information we saw with high schools. I guess really the important thing about the lottery number, and it's really a lot we think of to ask of parents to go through this exercise, because you've got to go through the exercise I just described of thinking about your priority groups and where you fall on that in applications and seats. And then there's sort of this additional mathematical exercise where if you are applying to a program with a lot of demand, more applicants than seats, then you've got to sit down and look at your lottery number and decide of all these programs. I think the exercise you should think about is of all the programs you're applying to that have very high demand, you can assume that you'll be put into the lottery for that. And so of those programs, depending on how strong your lottery number is, you should probably rank, if you have a very strong lottery number, you could probably get away with ranking some of the more competitive programs higher. And you might want to think differently if your number's a little weaker. So the same thing that Kush said, the first two characters of the number specify the percentage of students who rank equal or better than you. For example, a number starting with 6B is linked to a percentage of 42.2%, meaning that 42% of students are the same or better than you. And I reference Place NYC, which has a link and a table on their website that shows all of this data.
That was one of the links I dropped in earlier.
Yeah, and again, get your number if you haven't already. FOIL, MS enrollment at schools, high school enrollment at schools. And the lower the, okay.
The lower the first two characters, the better. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And an F, it means, and just so people understand hexadecimal, then the first character goes from 0 to F. People are like, what is that F stand for? and if you get a double F, you really are F'd. You don't want that. It goes from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. A is basically a 10. B is an 11. C is a 12. D is 13, 14, 15, etc. So F being, well, F is actually 15, not 16, because it goes from 0 to 15. If that helps. That's how hexadecimal works. Hope that's not condescending to anyone, but I think there's truly people that don't understand it.
They don't want us to understand it. Let's be clear.
And they don't. And I think it's intentionally. It didn't have to be a hexadecimal number, or they could have given us the decimal equivalent, and they chose not to.
The bottom line is get your number, check one of the tables that we've cited, look at the percentage. If it's a low percentage, you're in good shape. But if it's a high percentage, it's not such a great number.
Steve, I'm going to pause for a second just because we've been talking for a while. I want to take one question from Chantel. It's out of order, but I know that she had her hand raised before, and I think we skipped her. So if you don't mind, we'll take one, and then we'll continue on with the schools.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to address this with the lottery numbers. I am quite active on the Apply to High School for 22-23 school year. As of 2/7, everybody was getting their lottery numbers. They came out in a huge batch. Everybody who applied later on that day and after has been told very specifically by the DOE that they will not be releasing any further lottery numbers until after the admission cycle closes. And I've been on the phone with them for hours today, as have a number of other people that I am aware of, and they are taking a really hard line on this. So something seems to have changed just within the last week.
And when you said as of 2/7, what does that mean? As of
everybody who applied to or requested their lottery number on 2/7 or before was given their lottery number. I know hundreds of people who were. Now the DOE is refusing.
Who have you been speaking to today? I'm just curious, what department or which individuals?
Well, I originally got a letter, just the standard form letter from HS enrollment when I originally asked for it. They sent me a back letter saying, please, we received your letter. Don't call us. If you do, it's going to make it take even longer to process your request. It's been another week or so since I did that. I called in today because I didn't want to mess everything up. I spoke with a supervisor as well as the regular person who got on the line. We went down rabbit hole after rabbit hole for about 45 minutes today. At the end of it, they basically hung up and said, you're not getting your number. I also requested it through FOIL, who has not contacted me at all. So that's kind of where we're at. There's a lot of frustration from a lot of parents right now, and everyone wondering what's going on.
Chantel, I'm sorry, which district are you from?
I live in District 6. My child goes to school in District 3.
Can you just, yeah.
I know Chantel. It's
great. Okay. I just want to make sure someone follows up because that's not acceptable.
I can try writing to Christine. Kush, you can connect me with Chantel. I'll try writing.
Okay. And actually, while I do that, let's take Yael and then maybe we'll move on. By the way, I suggest to everyone that just heard that, don't let that stop you from making the request. Actually, if they're shutting it down, then that is another avenue. That is another avenue for you to express your voice. Don't do it because you're not going to get it. Absolutely lob those emails in and encourage all your friends to lob those emails in. And those who will get rejected should hopefully be even more incensed. So then as community education councils, we can say how many people requested a lot of numbers from our district, how many requested it from our borough, how many requested it from New York City. They should have answers for that.
So I was just going to add that I requested a FOIL request on February 5th, and I did receive my hexadecimal atrocious number. And I don't know if it's like, adverse selection that then on February 10th, I can tell you from Ann Macadang, I swear that's her name, who is the Deputy Counsel of Record Access Unit, Office of the General Counsel of the New York City Department of Education. She said, "Good morning, FOIL unit will not be processing because this request will be handled directly by the Office of Enrollment, who will respond to you directly with the requested lottery number." So I don't know. I mean, I followed the place form letter and I said, "Thank you for your response," but I already received the number. And I did receive it from someone named Ahmad from the Office of Student Enrollment at the NYC DOE. So I guess it depends who answers your email. That's all I wanted to add.
And further reason, put both emails on there. But FOIL, I know, can take a while, as we all know, even though this should be priority. And they've said it will be priority.
Okay. And that's disheartening news. Steve, do you want to continue on? You have two more topics, waitlists and auto auditions.
Let's get through these quickly. So the waitlists, of course, if you don't get your top choice, you'll be waitlisted at any schools that are above your offer. And then once the waitlist period, all it says right now on the DOE website is that offers are received in the spring. And the waitlist period last year ran through August 13th. During that time period, obviously things move around. You can add your name, your student's name to any number of waitlists, and you go through the usual channels for that. My schools being the easiest and best one. Just to put a data point out there from our district, in District 20, it was pretty minimal last year. Last year, only 6% of students in the district ultimately got a better offer off the wait list. So it's sort of saying that there wasn't all that much movement after the wait list. I know last year parents, some of the wait lists are just extremely long at popular schools, like in the thousands. And so it can be discouraging, but you should definitely pursue it. And one thing that we've talked about with the DOE is possibly keeping the wait lists open longer, keeping it open instead of having it end in August like it did last year, keeping it open until September or October. There's a planning advantage for the principals, but we think it's certainly more beneficial for parents to have the flexibility until September, October, when enrollment is finalized. Kids are moving around. Kids in our district, there's many Catholic schools that some kids will go to early in September. So at least that's one thing that they've told us they're considering, TBD. And then I think we can, unless there's any comments on wait lists, or I can move on.
Not from me. Anyone have any questions? Let's move on, and then we'll.
Yeah, and then the last one is just a comment on the arts process. As everyone probably knows, the DOE allowed performing arts high schools and middle schools to admit students based on auditions this year. Same deadline March 1st. There's 25 high schools throughout the city, 9 middle schools, including a new one in our district, MS 936. Again, submit the information through my schools. One interesting point is that the high schools, and they've done this in the past, is they admit students based on common audition components. So if you, for example, if you're applying to 3 different dance programs at 3 different high schools, you only have to submit 1 audition. However, each middle school has its own rubric and its own criteria, and that will typically be posted on the school's website. No sibling priority, DOE policy, sibling priority does not apply for arts auditions for the obvious reason that it's the talent of the individual and unrelated to the sibling. And that's all I have for prepared comments. So I think we can, put it back to you, Kush.
I think Craig just put us another speaker sign-up form. We can also be more informal and take raised hands. I think we missed somebody else yet the last time. My apologies. And I know I haven't answered all the questions in there, so in the chat. So I'll try to go through them. But if people want to, again, this is being recorded, it's being sent to DOE. If people want to raise their hands and make comments, please do while I go through the chat and connect some other people. And let's go from there. Or there's a speaker sign up that Craig just.
And we do have someone in the speaker sign up who put her name down.
So go ahead. Start
Ready.
with her.
Maria Garcia.
Hi. When the DOE proposed the new middle school in District 20, it was originally supposed to be a choice school. I've heard the arguments that people have made regarding District 2, where people were upset that the DOE made quick changes without parent engagement, where kids should be allowed to go to school close to their district or given some kind of priority. In District 20, we are asking for the same thing. The CEC passed a resolution suggesting changing MS 936 to a screen school, and also suggested that the screening methods should incorporate an algorithm to add bonus points or set aside based on eligibility for free reduced lunch, IEP status, and ELL status. However, that was not incorporated or taken into consideration. The enrollment office now says that it's too late to make these changes. I ask simply the same courtesy that is being requested for students in District 2 to be also given to students in District 20.
Thank you, Maria.
Steve, do you want to answer that?
Yeah.
There was something I wanted to add to that from.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, my comment on that is, and we're very involved with this, and we've heard the same thing from the DOE, of course, that this year it's too late. We're in the middle of the admission cycle, but that there's definitely openness to having a conversation about next year. And I think that everyone who wants to have a voice and a say in that should definitely make their voice heard and get engaged in the process. And I know everyone on the CEC will definitely welcome hearing that, as we've been hearing about for the past several weeks on the issue. So really, as far at this point, it's an issue for next year is the way that we're viewing it.
Can I add one other thing? The bonus points that came up, that's not something, by the way, the CEC has control over, because it's been something that, and I mentioned this, not to interfere in District 20's affairs, but it's something that we brought up here as well. That's really a DOE issue, and please make noise at the DOE level, at superintendent and enrollment level, because they have access to someone who can do those bonus points, and they've chosen not to hire her or to do this. They prefer static set-asides, and I don't want to get too wonky into this, but that requires it requires a mathematician that to hire this as a mathematician that they have access to, or someone similar, and they have chosen not to do that. and try to do a more simplistic method, which results in unintended consequences. I can't speak for District 20, but at D2, we still support that as opposed to straight cutoffs. And I think a similar situation exists here. And if you have issue with that piece of it, I don't think that was up to the CEC. That was a decision made at the DOE level. Please make noise there. Thank you.
The next person would be Allegra Legrand. Should be able to speak.
Hello. Hi. My name is Dr. Allegra Legrand. I'm a government R1 university scientist, also a D3 and D6 middle school, near middle school parent. Like to consider integration, consider special needs kids, consider families, and consider communities. Let me tell y'all, school choice rips apart my community. District 6 kids are shipped all around town, and no child has a K-12 experience with his or her friends. Look, you're too smart, you're too needy, you're too artsy, you're too sporty, too bad. You have to commute your D6 kids all around town. Parents who are too burdened, kids who are too distracted, there is no good school for you here. You're stuck with whatever you get left with. Now, we burn through our kids' times in meaningless daily commutes, a grind because we won't make the choice all kids deserve, a good school. The infinite choice of New York City schools is a polite euphemism for publicly sourced segregation. And while there may be a short-term gains in diversity for this infinite choice, it will ultimately send into the same highly stratified system, one where the inertia of the policy changes have worn out and we are still left with a highly segregated system where all kids are left wanting. So, thank you.
Thank you. And that is it for questions right now, or questions and comments rather. Thank you, Allegra.
I'm still going through the chat, but I noticed some other CCH members joined us. I think we're in the Queensboro event. Effie, are you here? Do you want to speak? And Alyssa, do you have anything you might want to say? And I don't know if you have. Craig, can you give her co-host privileges, or Ben?
They're both on. They both have.
Alyssa, I don't want to put you on the spot, but anything to add or that you thought was interesting?
Hi, good evening. Yes, indeed. I was at the Donovan Richards Parent Advisory meeting tonight with Chancellor Banks. Unfortunately, there is no updates or good news for parents who were hoping for an extension or some change in the criteria. There seemed to be some heated debate about the benefits of doing the admissions this year. More of the same, basically. So yes, I am here tonight representing Queens in the CCHS, and prior to that I was the D27 rep for about 2.5 years for the Queensboro President's Office. So I've been around the block a bit with councils and trying to work in the public to increase academic excellence in our schools. I'm going to put my email in the chat in case any of you ever need to reach me, and you are more than welcome to attend our meetings, which are held monthly. We have a lot of great information, and even if your child is not in high school yet, it's still a good idea to attend these meetings because we discuss what we are hoping to create for a better system for when your child does get to high school. So we can use all the support we can get, and if you send me your email, I will be sure to add you to our CCHS master list so that you get all our announcements. And thank you tonight for meeting and showing up and asking such good questions. We're hoping to get you better answers soon. Thank you.
I'll also, if Effie wants to unmute, and he can, but in the meantime, I'll read one of his comments. We're planning to start a petition at change.org. It'll probably be available tomorrow. You need to get everyone you know to sign it. We need to have as many signatures by Friday. Next week, DOE is off. No one else has any questions? Did anyone else post a question in the chat they felt was unanswered? Please go ahead and post it again. I'll try to. Hello? I'll try to address it. I'm sorry, my Zoom cut out.
I see Marie has her hand up.
Hi, my name is Marie Brugueras, and I am on the CEC20 I'm the treasurer of CEC2, and I believe that there's one aspect of the inconvenience that has not really been addressed, and that is the prevalence of subway crime. I am a parent. I'm a District 20 resident, but one of my children is a District 2, actually, student in elementary school. And, I'm hoping she will stay at the school for middle school, but they will no longer provide transportation at the middle school level. And I'm just thinking of a, small 11-year-old riding the subway for, over an hour. And I think that, bottom line is that this is something that I want for my child, but the parents who are not giving their choices and their children have to commute to other neighborhoods with subway crime. I mean, it's just really, I think that's another thing to the powers that be. Thank you.
Janie, you had a question. I don't know if it's procedural. I'll take
No,
that.
there's actually a question in the chat that I thought was a good question, so I'm going to re-ask it. So when essays and things like that get submitted, is it the schools who require the essays? Are the schools reviewing the essays, or is it someone in DOE Central?
I'm going to pass this one to any of our illustrious members in CCHS because I think it depends. But
let me talk since I haven't said much today. This is Effie Thackeray from the CCHS. I'm the second vice president there. Initially, Central said that they are going to centrally, I think, evaluate all the works. And I think then they realized it would be probably too much work for them. So they changed their mind and they let each school evaluate their own work. That evaluation now is some kind of a grade, and each school has its own rubric and it's a certain weight. So maybe certain schools say we want an essay, and that essay is 80% of what we consider to be the admission criteria. And then the other 20% is the lottery system that pretty much everybody else is using. I mean, there are the other criteria. There are some portfolios. Some people want sample works. One caveat is that they pretty much allowed it only to schools who have previously had additional criteria. And schools that didn't have such a criteria were not allowed to add it. Although I heard just today that there might be 1 or 2 exceptions that they just made today. So I'm a little confused about it. We will need to find out more information. The school I'm referring to, by the way, is the Nest M school.
Thank you.
There's another question. Somebody asked, when will we talk about middle school enrollment? We just did. I think there might, or are you talking about enrollment numbers? Don't have those handy, but someone else here might know them. Pam, I don't want to put you on the spot, but could you elaborate maybe on what exactly you want to know about middle schools? I mean, I can say, generally speaking, the situation is worse. Well, some ways worse, some ways better than the high school situation. It's basically lottery and lottery only, and it was that way last year as well. And they're trying to emphasize that even further with the sibling priority that extends to sibling priority just for kids who got in through lottery last year. To me, that problem is worse in the sense that now there are 2 out of 3 years in middle school that will become lottery. As for them changing it or advocating for us changing it, it's hard to have that fight unless we win the middle school fight. If they're not willing, the high school fight, if they're not willing to change at the high school level, they're not going to be willing to change at the middle school level. But I'm happy to answer further if you want to elaborate.
Kaushik, I'd like to add on as well. We, on the CEC levels, you see multiple CEC representatives here tonight. We haven't been sending letters, submitting resolutions. We've been fighting on our end. We presented what we think is very logical information as to why sibling priority should be extended to all siblings, regardless of whether or not students got in via lottery or merit.
Well, all students or no students.
Or no students, I was going to add. But it shouldn't be just half and half, kind of arbitrary, because either there's an argument to be made for keeping siblings together and for families to simplify their lives, cut back on the traveling alone and safety element, or we're just talking about what they deem as equity. And if that's the case, then there should be no sibling priority. But by having it just for one group, it actually puts students who are in 5th grade behind their peers with siblings, behind students, their peers who have siblings who got in through the lottery. And that doesn't seem equitable to me in any sense. So I understand, Kaushik, why you think in a sense, the middle school admission situation is even worse than the high school situation, but it's pretty much complicated and a mess overall. So, but we have been advocating on the CEC level, so we do need parents to send these emails, to make noise, to do whatever needs to be done. And I encourage you to all connect with one another. Feel free to drop emails or information in the chat if you want to connect with amongst each other and create your own formats for making that noise.
Two other things I would add to that as well. Again, I'm sorry to monopolize, but our first resolution on middle schools, this was an issue we foresaw coming in as a CEC. Our first resolution on this was in July. And our next one, I believe, was in September or October. I think we passed 3 or 4 resolutions regarding middle schools, and they all reference each other. And we've been distributing to other CECs as well, which D20 being one of them. So we've been pushing this issue hard from the beginning, and we foresaw it as a problem. It's unfortunate we're in the situation that we're in. I haven't given up this fight, but yeah, it's hard to, if you're willing to push it through on the high school level, it's hard to win it on the middle school level. So I'll just say that. And again, another avenue of advocacy that just occurred to me, tomorrow night is PEP, Panel for Educational Policy. Chancellor Banks should almost definitely be there. Chancellors don't always go every meeting, but if this is his first, I would imagine he's going. He should be announcing new PEP members. It's unfortunately, I don't know if it was changed back to electronic, but last I heard it was physical in the Bronx, and there's a website for it. I'll drop that into the chat as well.
Trish, it's online.
They switched it back to online?
Yep. And I did post it way back when.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, just online, offline has to do with its whether or not they extend the emergency situation, which they just did recently. I know it's all wonky, but
so please do reach out to us if you have more questions or comments. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to help you make noise. We'd love to help do whatever we can. Reach out to CEC District 2. There are other CECs here and CCHS. So not sure how whatever route you want to go, please do though stay in touch and let us know what you want to do and how we can help you.
Karen did beat me to the punch and dropped to PEP in just a moment ago. Suzanne. Apologies. I know there's questions still coming in. At this point, it's hard to go back and read them all. At this point, if people do have another question, it's really easy to just raise your hand and ask, and I'll happily answer it or pass it to someone who can. I would also add, and maybe again, someone who's at the Queensboro meeting, there is still, this was on the agenda, and I know some people are highly interested in it, G&T. Honestly, I was expecting an announcement by the time this meeting happened. There had been signals that that an announcement was imminent, which again, several of us objected to, that an announcement could happen again without engagement. There hasn't been one yet, but I think my understanding at the Queensboro meeting is they are still not prepared to make such an announcement. Alyssa, did I misstate? Alyssa or Effie, did I misstate anything there? Again, sorry.
I don't think there was any formal announcement about G&T except they would maintain, well, for the specialized high schools, they're definitely maintaining the tests. It's not like they have a choice, that's state law. So that was kind of in the conversation when they were discussing G&T. Effie, is there anything else that you can recall? that was more of a formal announcement?
Not really. I think basically they said there's no new information about it, which upset many of us because we expected some information. But this is their MO. I mean, all the time, this is how they do it. They say that they're working on it. It's not ready. They will let us know. Be patient. It's forthcoming. Wait soon. And then they just, without any heads up, without any discussions with either principals, superintendents, parent leaders, such as the community districts, the educational districts that are here, they just push it on the people, and then we kind of have to just kind of deal with it, like pretty much like high school enrollment was just announced last week, without any prior engagement, without any prior, not even a hint as to what they're planning to do. The bucket, the lottery, nothing said, nothing done. They just kind of shove it down our throat, basically, and we have to swallow it. That's the way they see it. Very disappointing.
I just wanted to add that one of our priorities in Queens is to expand the Queens High School for Science at York College. We're currently working with the Borough President's Office to try to find a new home, a new building for that school so they can expand the seat count. We're hoping that we can also use a new facility that's being built on Northern Boulevards to expand even more seats in Queens. We are very short on high school seats in our borough, and we want them to be building more schools, quality schools, opening up different programs, both on the, the technical education side as well as the accelerated learning side. And we are making that a priority. And these are longer term projects. Unfortunately, some of these things take time, and we're trying to go for the long game with Queens and really build our schools up as, other areas in the city have done. It's a fight. It's a fight to find the land. It's a fight to find the funding. So I just wanted to update everybody that we are in the process of citing a new location for that school, hopefully soon.
Thank you, Alyssa. I wanted to read quickly. I want to say we all are here for one another. So there is power in numbers. So we can make things happen. I do believe it's not a lost cause, but we do have to fight for change. There was a question, do we know how many families in D2 left the system last year? I want to answer that question. I'm seeing it right now. I was told close to 4,000 students in District 2 between K and 8 left in the past 2 years. That's a staggering number.
That is a verified number. So it's more than just Robin was told. Yes, she was told that. She was told that at our last CEC meeting. She was told it by our president, who looked off the enrollment numbers that were posted by, I actually believe they're posted by New York State, not the DOE. But in any case, it was from an official site. I logged in and verified those numbers. That is correct. Close to 4,000 drop off. I'll let that sink in, but I will address another question. A question regarding wait lists. If people add themselves to the wait list, do they go to the bottom of the wait list or to the bottom of their priority group? So a sibling who adds himself to a wait list can bump everyone else further down the wait list. I think that is your understanding. That is correct. If someone with a sibling comes in and wants to join the wait list, they go to the top and join all other siblings. And they're not even necessarily at the bottom of that sibling list. It actually depends where their wait list is, where their random number is relation to their random number for that wait list. And they might even beat out other siblings on that wait list. So it has nothing to do with when they join. It has purely to do with how the lottery numbers they drew. And the different priority buckets, as you rightly pointed out.
Chris, I did get a question from a parent. I wish someone on the panel can answer my question. That what's the reason any parent should care about the screen high schools if all standards have been lowered now? That's a tough question to answer, right? I think you're going to get a wider variety of students of different skill levels. It's hard to say that all standards have been lowered or that those programs won't be as good, right? If the DOE is prepared to train teachers to deal with that kind of
that kind of variety in skill levels. And so I would say, you know, I don't envy the parents who are applying this year.
I would even add further to that. A point that I did make several times to my superintendent as well as to enrollment when we had the brief meeting with them was that even if they could train teachers to address such a wide range of student needs, which by the way I'm dubious of, but even if they could do that, a high school is more than just its students and its teachers and its faculty. High schools are important in terms of maintaining connections and relationships with colleges. Colleges care about this because they want to know how hard the courses are at schools. And if they don't know, if there's a significant drop off in APs, for example, because of a wider range of students, because fewer students qualify and therefore they can offer fewer AP courses, and the difficulty of the overall high school goes down, and their quality in terms of how they're perceived by certain colleges also goes down, which means their admissions to certain of these colleges also decreases. I have made this point several times, so it's not just, and was criticized for some of it, but it's not just the dumbing down of standards that I believe is happening. It also affects the future relationships with colleges and where our students end up in colleges 3 years and 4 years from now, which we can do. We can say we want that. We want to improve access to certain groups within the city, but all our kids as a whole suffer in New York City because they're not just competing against other New York City kids; they're competing against other kids in the country, and which are competing against other kids in the nation, which don't do this, in the nation and internationally, which don't do this.
Can I address a couple questions in the chat to the best of my ability? So I see questions from several participants about the diversity and admissions criteria. So my understanding is for high schools, the only set-asides currently are for free or reduced lunch. And how that works, at least at my son's school, as far as I know, which is a screen school. Last year, we increased the amount of seats that would go in the lottery for the first 50% to free or reduced lunch qualified students. And then after that, the next 50% were pulled from the remaining free and reduced lunch students combined with those that did not qualify. So yes, it did increase supposedly the numbers of free or reduced lunch participants in the 50% set aside first. My understanding is this year that it will remain the same. If your school has a set aside for a free or reduced lunch percentage, it will be honored in the lottery that is currently set up. And just to address one of the other questions, you know, how if the DIE bumped kids in the lottery where the middle school families, middle class families, sorry, not middle school, middle class families go. I just want to say that you have to realize some of it is funding, right? So in my son's school, a lot of people don't realize that 1 in 3 students qualifies for some type of food stamps or public assistance, and over 50% qualify for free reduced lunch, yet they have maintained academic excellence despite the set aside, or not despite, maybe because of, we have a lot of students who are from immigrant families. They work extremely hard to get into that school. I'm hoping that even with this criteria, the parents who choose to rank the school that my son attends will realize the workload is quite high, and that it will be expected that they attend every day and they study just as hard as they would have any other year. I'm hoping optimistically. I don't think having a set aside necessarily ruins the academic pool or the chance of a good education. I just want to put that out there because it helps with funding, especially if you become a Title I school, you get extra money, and that increases, you know, what all students in that school can enjoy. So those are my personal comments, not necessarily reflecting the council I'm on. And I just want to say that I have seen it work in the school that my child attends. So I hope that answered some of the questions about the DIA initiatives.
Let me chime in a little bit. I have spoken to several principals who, at least as of now, are not planning to reduce the rigor of the curriculum. But what that means is that there could be many, and it could be 20, 30, even 40% of the students who are coming in next year who will be flunking out. So I'm not sure if they'll be able to continue that level of commitment to the curriculum when a superintendent comes to them and says, I see that 40% of your students are not passing this year. I don't know that that's going to continue. So it's possible that eventually some principals will capitulate into this. It's possible that some will just transfer out. The students will transfer out if they feel that it's too challenging for them. I think the DOE is completely discounting the psychological ramifications of what they're doing. A student who's usually gets C's or B's suddenly goes to a school that everybody is getting A or A pluses. That's a very tough transition. It's going to be very, very hard. Like, even like working till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and then that student feels that like, wow, I'm like doing so much worse than everybody around me. Psychologically, it can be very damaging. It can lead to depression. It can lead to low self-esteem. It could be a lot of problems. And the DOE keeps talking about social emotional learning, but they're now exposing possibly thousands of students into even more problems than that we already are facing right now in the system. Again, we never had the dialogue with anybody that was meaningful, so it was very hard to convey all these messages that we have. We're conveying it to parents. We're hoping that parents will convey that to different people, and that eventually the message will kind of resonate with the top administration of the DOE. We're still working on trying to talk to some of the people.
Daniela has her hand raised. Daniela, do you want to chime in?
Thank you. I just want to speak quickly that it feels that every single discussion we have, at the CC and around education in New York City comes down to there's too many families fighting to get access to a few schools. And the priority of DOE should be not changing who gets access to the schools, but just to increase the number of seats that families are actually excited to send their kids to. And I think that's the message we need to send. I don't think there is a conflict between the goal of the chancellor of increasing access to low-income students to high-quality seats, but we just need more of these schools. And I think that should be their focus instead of trying to, change composition on the schools. Like, we can have all children excel and achieve at their highest level they are capable of. And we know that now children are not being challenged across the board.
Is there anyone else? I think we're going to close up soon. If anyone else wants to speak, first of all, thank you for that, Daniela.
I will comment a little bit about what Daniela said. So I've been talking to a lot of parents all around the city, especially in Queens, and there's a lot of talk of integration and diversity, but I'm yet to meet, for example, a Black mother who tells me, they say they want diversity and all that, but they don't really mean that. They mean, I want my school to be better. I never met a Black mother who says, I wish we had more Asians in my school. I never met a Hispanic father who said, I wish we had more white people in the school. That is not really what they're looking for in diversity. What they really, really mean is they want their schools to be better. Nobody wants to travel far away. Nobody wants to spend 2-3 hours commuting. They just want to have their local neighborhood school be better. And I feel like the one thing that the OE has been miserably failing to do in the past few years is to make their schools better. They're doing everything but that, almost. Like, we're all the different ideas, all the equity initiative, diversity, with transporting students from one place to another. The one thing that they
Nicole, be careful. Don't kick now, okay?
The thing that would solve, the one solution that would solve all the problems is really improve schools across the board. If every school gets better, parents will be happy. Why would you want to travel far away if you have a great school in your neighborhood? That's, I think, is the ultimate solution. And I'm amazed there's been so little effort to do that.
Effie, I think we all want more good schools for everyone. That's what we campaigned on when I ran for CEC. That's what we've been asking for from DOE. It doesn't seem like we're getting that answer. And I know when Mayor Adams ran for mayor, he said he wanted to have more good schools all over the city and more specialized schools. So we're just asking them to deliver on their promise, because that's what we want. We want better schools in all districts, in all communities, so that children don't have to travel far. I agree with all the comments about how education needs to improve for all. Yes, it needs to improve for everyone. There should be advanced offerings if kids are advanced. If kids need help, there should be help for them. So that's the real question. Why isn't the DOE doing it? I don't know. Let's ask them. Chen.
Yes, thanks, Robin. I don't know if you can see me. I've been listening. You guys did a great job in organizing. Thanks to our committee at CEC2, CCHS, and D20 CEC members. I wanted to add to that. I think we really expressed it, and so did Effie. You know, when we talk about good schools, what does that really mean? We've seen that 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, when we had programs such as G&T, academically screened schools programs in every school, before they chopped up the schools to make them smaller so that they don't have any more economies of scale. These are the programs that families from the Bronx, from Brooklyn, from Queens, and Staten Island travel hours to get to because there are not enough of them, or they don't exist in their own local schools. So what it boils down to is really there are kids who need the support for higher level academics, and they're not getting it. It's not to say we don't support other students and learning needs, but the high academic performing students are not being supported where they are. That's why when there's a choice, a charter school or a G&T program outside their district, or an academically screened high school or middle school, they leave. But why don't we provide that program, these programs in their local schools, so that every local school have these choices? And I bet you people will be coming in from other boroughs if that's the only place that we can get it, in their local schools. And I'm not looking at District 2 families. I'm looking at families in the Bronx, in Brooklyn, East New York, and Staten Island. So I think that's what I think one key is to have these programs in every school. Thank you.
I just want to very quickly just have a disclaimer. Although everything I've said tonight are just my personal opinion.
Same for me as well. Thank you. And thanks for all the families coming out tonight.
I will.
Can I just put a plug in for going to the PEP tomorrow night and voicing your opinions there? We have new appointees. Mayor Adams has his first meeting, and the more parents go and sign up and express their views, the better it's going to be for the incoming PEP members. They're going to get a taste of what it's like, who they're accountable to. It's going to be a long meeting. They canceled January, so it's a double meeting. We have some, school building stuff up front and contracts. But if you can hang in there, and it's going to be a long meeting, if you can hang in there and put your name on that speaker list, it would really mean a lot. I really do think that that's the place to go this week to make some noise, because I'm sure the press is going to be there listening too. I have a feeling. So I put the info in the chat on how to catch that tomorrow night. And it's virtual. It was going to be in the Bronx, but we got lucky with the open meeting law. So
Yeah, I think we're gonna wrap up. So I'll say one piece. I'll say one piece, and I'll pass it to Robin to close. Yes, please go to PEP. Please look for the change petition that Effie mentioned. Please write emails complaining to all the things that we discussed. We dropped in emails for the chancellor, deputy chancellor, and enrollment several times. I'll keep the chat open a little bit longer so you can go back and copy the whole thing. You can do that and then sort it out later. And in any of your communications, remember, and someone made reference to this, what Chancellor Banks had said, he wants to scale, sustain, and restore what works. He is not sustaining what works in these policies, I would say, unifying message, whether we're talking about high schools, middle schools, or even G&T. And I'll pass off to Robin for some closing comments, and thank you everyone for coming.
I still see 2 hands raised. Is it something we can make brief, Effie or Stephen?
I'm going to be very quick.
Okay.
When people sign up to the PEP, as soon as you sign up, please sign that you want to speak. Otherwise, they will not recognize you. When you sign in, make sure that you want to speak. Just there's a checkbox, please check it. That's all.
Great, thank you. That's helpful.
Steve, is your hand up
It's
from
up to,
before?
it's up to you guys. There's a District 20 resident who has a question that I wouldn't mind, but if it's up to you guys, if she can ask it.
Go ahead.
Ellen, go ahead. Can someone unmute or allow Ellen to unmute? Ellen Izzo?
You have it, Craig?
She's okay. She's unmuted.
Okay.
Ellen, you can speak.
All right. Oh,
We hear you.
okay. And I can, whoops, let me start my video. Sorry.
There you go. We see you.
Hi. I am confused about the policy for admissions for 936 specifically, but I'm hearing many other problems that are with other schools as well. But the very quick turnaround for 936 becoming an admission school or a screen school, as they say, with an essay as part of the admissions. And I don't understand, there are no rubrics attached to any of this. I don't know. Here is a compare and contrast. We're comparing the Mona Lisa to a Frida Kahlo. What is it they're looking for? Are they looking art history? I don't know what they're looking for. What are they looking for? I think that we should know. I mean, if we want our kids to get in, and this is what we have to do, which I think is very sad, because I think there's other ways to ask them about their passions and what they need to do to be an artist in this world. Those are my questions. So I haven't really gotten answers, and there is nothing transparent about it. That's all.
Thanks. I just wanted, maybe I'll just share my screen. Do you guys mind if I share my screen? Because I'm looking at rubrics on the school website. And I'll just, like, for example, this is on visual arts, showing the different categories.
Right, that's for 2 drawings, but actually it's only one of the 2 drawings. I'm talking only about the visual arts.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Writing component, none of this has anything to do with the writing component. That's my question.
Yeah, and, okay. Please email me. We can
question.
I don't want to cut you off, but
yeah, we can take this offline. Ellen, please email me.
Yeah, Steve, can you drop your email in the chat? And Ellen,
I did.
Can I put you in touch with him?
Yep.
We don't want to silence anyone, but it's.
Yeah, I want to let everyone go because I really appreciate your time, and I know it was a commitment for you to come here. And if you're like I am, I feel like there's a meeting every night, if not 3 or 7. So thank you so much for coming and sharing your thoughts. And please do stay in touch with us and reach out if you have any more questions or comments or ideas. And stay in touch with each other because, as I said earlier, we're all here to help one another, and we all want better education for our children, and that unites us. So thank you so much.
And I wanted to thank, first of all, I want to thank our guests from all from other CECs, particularly CCHS and District 20. Jen, I'm sorry we didn't get to hear from you, but thank you, Karen, Effie, Alyssa from CCHS, and Steve and Jen from D20. I don't think I missed anybody. I want to thank Craig, who is a man behind the scenes from our committee, who always does a great job. He does a great job helping us behind the scenes, and it's because you don't understand how much work goes into, or maybe some people do. There's a lot that goes into this, from publicity to content to making sure things run smoothly, and he's our man that makes things run smoothly. Also, our president, Ben Morden, who was also behind the scenes today, and let us kind of run with it. And he also suggested that we explain what PEP is. Alyssa just put an explanation there, but suffice it to say that it's a panel that advises the chancellor and/or the mayor, and the chancellor is confirmed to be there tomorrow for PEP. So that's all you kind of need to know if you want to get into the weeds. And thanks also to any other committee members that showed up for us. I think Fire did. I don't know for other committee members as well, but thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Tunisia.
No, sorry.
Nadia.
I didn't see her. I didn't see Tunisia and Nadia, but perhaps they're here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, CEC2, for inviting us. Appreciate it.
Come again.
Of course.
Good night. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.